Asked by the attorney, did you have arguments? Ventura, yes, they were violent arguments, usually resulted in physical abuse and dragging different things.
None, but none of this should come as a surprise because the charges in this case are very dense. Sean Combs facing 5 counts.
Imagine sitting in front of a surveillance console, expecting another routine day in an old courtroom. Suddenly, the room freezes as Cassie walks in, phones go dark. A judge exchanges looks, and Diddy's heart rate spikes on screen.
Ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura. Ventura is now on the stand, although we do have a warning. The details in this particular testimony may be upsetting.
What did she say that caused celebrities to flee the country? The answers lie in room 6C. Are you ready for them? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now back to the video. The surveillance worker wasn't exactly new to the job, but let's just say it wasn't one filled with action. Their days were typically spent monitoring screens for courtroom security, yawning occasionally, sipping bad coffee, and praying for the clock to move faster. But from the moment Cassie walked into room 6C, their otherwise dull day morphed into a live wire of tension. It wasn't just her entrance, it was everything that came with it. First, there was the strange shift in atmosphere. Imagine a casual hum of activity, murmurs from attorneys, and the shuffle of documents suddenly replaced by a suffocating silence.
Right out of the gate, Ventura described an abusive relationship with Combs and taking part in these so-called freak-offs.
According to the worker, it felt like someone had blasted cold air into the courtroom. Cassie wasn't making a scene as she walked in, but her presence alone seemed to send ripples across the room. Oddly enough, the surveillance equipment picked up subtle signs long before most people. The worker noticed something unusual. Diddy's heart rate monitors, attached as part of standard security protocol for high-profile cases, started showing a spike. His pulse didn't jump when the hearing began or even when the judge entered. It shot up right before Cassie stepped through the door. Coincidence? Maybe. But to the worker, it felt like he knew what was coming, like he'd read the spoiler notes for this particular drama. People in the courtroom acted strangely too. Just as Cassie entered, phones started buzzing under the tables. Whispered alerts were spreading down rows like wildfire, but no one said a word out loud.
They wanted to review the transcripts of Cassie Ventura's testimony about that hotel incident when Combs was caught on security camera attacking her.
You'd think this ominous ritual was choreographed. Like an unspoken emergency rehearsal everyone except the surveillance worker had been clued in on. And almost as soon as the buzzes started, they stopped. In fact, the phones all went dark at the same time, something the worker described as eerie. Imagine watching everyone in unison lock away their only connection to the outside world. No scrolling, no accidental vibrations, nothing. It could have been a coincidence, sure, but that level of synchronicity gave coincidence a run for its money. Cassie didn't storm in like some courtroom drama character yelling objection. She didn't need to. Her presence alone carried weight, enough to drag the air out of the room.
Judge, but Eva, I think today really put into focus the tension that the defense is trying to show between coercion and consent.
The surveillance worker was the only one who seemed confused. It seemed like every other person in that courtroom, lawyers, defendants, the judge, even the clerks, knew something seismic was about to happen. As if they'd been waiting for this moment. But what puzzled the worker even more was how fast the energy shifted. The judge, who'd been flipping through documents casually minutes before, switched gears the second Cassie appeared. His eyes locked onto her, unflinching, like he already understood the storm she was about to bring. And let's not forget, this is a judge who's seen it all. Career criminals, media scandals, you name it. Yet even he sat up straighter at that moment. Now here's where it gets tricky. This wasn't an open and shut case where someone waltzes in holding smoking gun evidence. Everything about Cassie's role seemed to move behind sealed curtains. Surveillance reports and later released files pointed to her being a key figure in this entire web.
Asked by the attorney, did you have arguments? Ventura, yes, they were violent arguments, usually resulted in physical abuse and dragging different things.
What exactly made her such a threat? Specifics weren't public, but rumors swirled. Whispers about hidden connections and dealings surfaced, leaving major headlines behind. So whatever Cassie brought to Room 6C wasn't just ordinary courtroom testimony, it was more like tossing a hand grenade right into the middle of a fragile situation, and you could almost hear the pin drop.
The attorney, were you ever injured? Ventura, yes. Usually I would get knocks on my forehead, black eyes, red eyes.
And let's circle back to those phones for a second. Remember when they all went dark together? If that wasn't odd enough, the surveillance worker later noticed something in the sealed files that hit different. Flight logs, for private planes no less, were being updated manually just after Cassie arrived. Think about that for a second. While the tension in the courtroom was building, someone, somewhere, was preparing for takeoff. People weren't just sitting in that courtroom nervous. They were actively planning how to get out of Dodge.
But none of this should come as a surprise because the charges in this case are very dense. Sean Combs facing 5 counts.
And they weren't planning for delayed flights and baggage checks. Nope, we're talking private jets already being fueled up. It's one thing to panic. It's another to panic and coordinate a literal great escape. Back in the courtroom, things only got more loaded. Cassie's testimony began, but from the worker's account of that day, it wasn't even her words that left the deepest impression.
It churned at first. I didn't have a concept of how that would be. I was confused, nervous, but I also loved him very much and wanted to make him happy.
It was the unease rippling through the room as she spoke, eyes darting, pens clicking louder than usual, even breaths seemed heavier than normal. And the judge? That focus never wavered. He leaned slightly forward, hands clasped on his desk, hanging on to every word as though Cassie's testimony held not just legal implications, but personal stakes too.
Cassie's testimony regarding that event at the hotel, which is an event where you could clearly see that she was being coerced into something, right? So
whatever she was revealing, it wasn't just courtroom procedure. It was something that threatened to spill far beyond those 4 walls. By the time the session adjourned, the surveillance worker felt like they had just watched a live thriller unfold on their modest security monitors. The uproar wasn't public yet, but the groundwork had already been laid. Those updated flight logs, the sudden drop in heart rates as people exited the room. Panic was already in motion. Cassie wasn't just testifying, she was detonating a bomb, and the shockwaves were spreading faster than anyone could have guessed. This wasn't a courtroom meltdown. This was coordinated chaos, playing out in real time. Cassie's unexpected testimony didn't just rattle a few celebrities. It pulled the curtain back on a network so tangled, even the courtroom itself seemed unprepared. Within hours, sealed warrants were issued, travel bans surfaced, and celebrities scrambled like ants avoiding a magnifying glass. One analyst pointed to flagged passports and secretive flight plans, complete with code names, as proof this wasn't just panic. Diddy's spiking heart rate, phones turning dead, and whispered alerts weren't coincidences, they were symptoms of a much bigger storm brewing. If what Cassie revealed caused this level of chaos, you've got to wonder, what else is still buried?